the Friday the 13th version of the Beavercreek Rotary Club. And by the way, if you guys are looking for a tattoo, if you go to a tattoo day, you get to have $31. You should see the line over there at Beaver Valley Spirits. That's why I was selling bourbon, but they're not there. So that's all right. I'd like to thank our greeters, Beth and David Kuzak, Eric Marcus for everything Eric does, and Beth for the setup and program. Pete Rail, Mark Weinstein, Mike Swick for actually getting us the chair. And Jim Goodall for the website. If you would, Jenny's not here today. If you would, please bow your heads. Father, we gather here today as members of Rotary, united in service and fellowship. We ask for your guidance as we strive to uplift our communities and make a positive impact in the lives of those around us. May our hearts be open to new ideas, our spirits be filled with kindness, and our actions be driven by compassion. Help us to remember the values of integrity and service above self as we work together towards our shared goals. Bless our discussions today, and may they inspire us to create a meaningful change. Amen.
Amen.
Secretaries of Board, Josh.
All right. 7%. All right. Speaker, Kim Bessie, one guest, Don Voter.
And I called the opposite. You heard Kim was speaking, and as you know, Don spoke with us about a month ago. He serves on the Ohio Hospice Board. Of course, Kim was the director of hospice here for a long time. Sergeant at Arms, Chris Hadley. That's good. Now I'm very well.
That loud one, I want that every time I come up. That was awesome. All right. Hello again. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, and hello again to our guest Don and our incredible speaker. And welcome again to the June 13th meeting of the Rotary Club of Beavercreek. And for those of you who are superstitious and are doing your best not to break any mirrors, spill salt, good news. You can blame all your misfortunes on someone else because today is National Blame Someone Else Day. However, we got this little four-way test over here. It says, is it the truth? So as us being Rotarians, we can't celebrate that today. Moving on to some birthdays and anniversaries. Upcoming birthdays for our members, we have David Stewart celebrating his birthday on the 15th. Brian Lampton celebrating his birthday on the 16th. And then as far as wedding anniversaries, we have Charles Curran celebrating 62 years with Sarah.
Oh, no.
And this seems like it's 65. I blame Eric for not having the right information here. And then this one feels like it should be 65, but it's only 1 year. Brian and Karen Lampton will be celebrating their anniversary on the 17th. Some good things that happened today in history. Going back to 1774, Rhode Island, whose flag at the time featured the word Pope, became the first of Britain's North American colonies to ban the importation of slaves. Moving on to 1967, U.S. President Lyndon Johnson nominated Thurgood Marshall, the highly successful attorney known for his victory in Brown versus Board of Education. That decision obviously ruled segregation in public schools were unconstitutional. He was appointed to the highest court and became the first Black Supreme Court justice. And then in 1975, the #1 album, Frampton Comes Alive, was recorded by Peter Frampton in the Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco. And that stayed on the charts for 97 weeks. Now for some things to celebrate. Tomorrow, I know there are some people in this room who won't have to have their arm twisted to celebrate National Bourbon Day. But it's also not to be outshined by Saturday also being the Army's birthday as well. Sunday, obviously, is Father's Day. And what better way to celebrate Father's Day by also celebrating National Phone Party Day? Said no dad ever. Monday is National Take Your Cat to Work Day. It is also International Waterfall Day, which you don't have to go overseas to celebrate this, since we have some pretty awesome ones over at Glen Helen, Cedar Cliff Falls, and Charleston Falls, especially after a good rainstorm. Tuesday, oddly enough, last Tuesday was National Black Cow Day. Does anyone want to know what this upcoming Tuesday is?
Round cow.
National Root Beer Float Day. So they're double dipping this month. It is also National Mascot Day on Tuesday. Wednesday, we have Autistic Pride Day and also National Thank a Teacher Day, which I think that could have been picked out for a better time of year than summer break, but that's just me. Thursday, we have Juneteenth. It's also National Watch Day. And then if you're looking for some fun things to do, tomorrow the Beavercreek Wetlands will have their native plant sale and a free speaker series over at Coy Middle School from 10 to 2. Sunday continues the summer concert series over at Dominic Liconfino Park with, I'm going to butcher this, but Beavercreek Valley. From what I've read, they're awesome, both entertainment and music. They'll be performing from 7 to 8. And then fast forward to Thursday, our friends at the Chamber will have their monthly business links at the Residence Inn from 4:30 to 6:30. So Beaver Creek student awesomeness, although school is over, we got some exciting news to start with. Tennis coach, I didn't put his name on here, but there was a tennis coach that received the OSHA Sportsmanship, Ethics, and Integrity Award.
Greg Milano.
That sounds right.
So,
We'll go with that. We also had Major retired Melvin C. Whitlow named a 2025 Air Force Space Force Junior ROTC Outstanding Instructor Award Sub-Regional winner for Region 3. And Sergeant David Mackey also was honored with an Outstanding Instructor Award as well. Beavercreek City Schools also became the 7th school in Ohio to earn the Trusted Learning Environment Seal, which is all about keeping students' data safe, which I think we all can appreciate since we have all those knuckleheads that like to hack things. My to share is Beavercreek's Faith Brown not only took 2nd place in the 100-meter hurdles at the state track and field meet last weekend, but she also took 1st place in 300-meter hurdles and I quote, ran the fastest time ever at OSU's Jesse Owens Stadium.
oh, wow.
And we also had Nora McElroy take 3rd place in the seeded 100-meter and 400-meter race. And so you probably could be wondering what's better than being a state champ? Well, if you're reigning state champs in the esports, you go to the National Rocket League Championship, you get the 2nd seed, and then proceed to go 25-0 and become national champs. So that is awesome that we can now say Beavercreek has national champs. That's even better news. Today's fines. So if you're not wearing your badge, that'll be $1. If you were late, I didn't see anybody, but take your word on it, that's $1. If you've ever listened to Frampton Comes Alive, that's $1. If you've ever worn a watch, that's $1.
Watch.
And I got a 2-parter here. If you ever went to a school that had a mascot, that's $1. But if you were the mascot, you're exempt from that $1.
Thank you, sir. And they are not the only national champs that we've had here in Beavercreek. The junior ROTC has been national champions 3 times in a row. So I'm proud of our people. Happy Bucks.
It's all right. So I've got 2 happy bucks today. First happy buck is that my daughter and granddaughter moved in this week upstairs at my house. And that's a happy buck because that tells you how much I like her boyfriend. Well, that's happy. My second happy buck is last night we had the district changeover dinner and it was really good. And I was there and the new DG said stuff about me. I've never heard anybody say that many nice things about me at the same time.
Yeah, I was there and I kept looking around, wondering when the world was going to come to an end. Yeah,
I'm really excited. So my sister's house had a baby, so we're having a baby shower on Saturday and then a big fun on Father's Day. So I'm real excited for a thank you loading weekend.
it's good. Anyone else? Happy Bucks.
Can I Train Your Dragon the live action comes out today? I've been waiting like all year for that.
I'm surprised you're not standing in line.
You can get electronic tickets.
Okay.
But
Anyone else have any votes? I'm happy because I won't be here next year. We're going to go on vacation. First vacation I've had in quite some time. We're going to Washington DC for a while, so I will not be here next Friday. And then I only have half a meeting left after that, so maybe I should give them 20. They want us. I will have to take a drawing as soon as, so what I do with my, there's get set up here. Here, the cash flow. This is for 55th year Christmas basket program. Half the proceeds will go to that, the other half will definitely not go to Joe or David. Number one is 136441. I didn't know what number two will be. That's Sure, one more. This morning I'm going to class. It was 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. Or Jim. Was he? 5 o'clock. All right, people are. All right, any announcements for the club? Continue to bring up.
Yeah, I have one. If you still owe dues for this quarter, please try to get me paid before the end of the month, because when we're not, then poor Carrie has to go back and make adjustments between accrual and cap, and it's a lot of extra work for her, and then she charges me more money, and I may have to buy her a cookie.
Yeah, this is the end of our year at the end of June, so we need to get things tidied up so that they're completed for the new year, starting in June or July.
I have one question.
Sure.
So also tomorrow is Flag Day. So Green County Sheriff's always retires the flag. That's at 6:30, but prior to, they have a Veterans Day picnic, which is free from 4 to 6. All at Green County Fairgrounds.
I actually had it on my list to do. Thank you so much for bringing it up. I appreciate that. Yeah, if you've never been out to the flag retirement ceremony, Gene Fisher started this years ago when he was there and he passed away, and Scott Angers continued it now. And they have a retired Army general from Green County that's going to be speaking tomorrow. So it should be a good program. Anything else?
It's at the Green County Fair.
Green County Fairgrounds. And when those flags go up,
They go.
it's huge. I mean, it's amazing. You have to see it to believe. There's between 4,000 and 5,000 flags that they retire one time. So it's an amazing sight.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right. Now I have to listen to our speaker. And Kim is a friend of mine. She and my wife worked together at Hospice of Dayton years ago. And how people can do what they do for what they did. I still don't know. It's not something I could do, but I'm really glad there are people there that can do that. She served as a hospice nurse and in hospice leadership roles for over 40 years. She retired as executive director of Hospice of Dayton in 2023. And has been certified in hospice nursing and thanatology, which is the study of death and grief. She was widowed nearly 20 years ago, and a 29-year-old daughter and unborn child she's carrying died in 2017 with an anoxic brain injury. It's medical stuff I can't say, even though I'm very nurse. Following an asthma attack, she left behind her 3-year-old son. Finally, Kim started her own business, My Hope Path, journeying through grief toward hope. She has written 6 books for children on grief, dealing with family familiar loss, mommy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, brother, and sister. She speaks nationally on topics related to and end of life and grief, including workplace grief, grieving children, grieving veterans, and many others. Please welcome Kim Reese.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I don't know if you noticed, that Dawn had a little book on the screen while we were going through all the introductory parts of the meeting. It said at hospice, we don't just add days to life, we add life to days. And boy, it gets to that. There are actually studies that show patients who enroll in hospice live longer than those who have similar illness and prognosis and don't enroll in hospice. We think it's because of the symptom management and the resolution and the education that they get. So, I know people aren't really nervous about hospice. It's not something you want to think about, but when you need it, you're so grateful that it's there. So as I looked around the room until about 5 minutes before the meeting started, there were like 10 people in here. And I thought, yeah, there we go again. Death and grief. People don't come. They don't hear about it. Right? So thank you for showing up because it got a little bit bigger. You know, most of us avoid discussions on death and grief. It's awkward. We don't know what to say. Don't know how to say it. We have them or don't we, right? You know, and so then sometimes you resort to cliches. Things like, well, God never gives you more than you can handle. Think about this for a moment. Your spouse just died 2 days ago, unexpectedly. And someone says to you, God never gives you more than you can handle. It's not really comforting, right? It either sounds like you need to suck it up and keep going, right? Or roll up and fall, right? Because you can't handle it. Or God needed another angel. During my daughter's visitation, my son was standing next to me, and I said to him at one point, if one more person says to me, I need another angel, I'm gonna tell them, right? Why didn't he take your angel instead of mine, right? Right. Again, it's not comforting. So after all I've learned about life and death, my patients and my own life experiences of loss, I think one of the greatest contributions I can offer is helping people to understand what grief is, what happens when someone's grieving, and how best to support the grieving person. So today we're going to focus on grief in the workplace. Figure out where the little ears at. Somehow. So many different many different types of loss can result in grief, not just death, but divorce, miscarriage, job loss, your child going off to college. I worked with someone who came in sobbing when her child went to kindergarten. So, I mean, there's lots of different life experiences that can prompt a grief response. Grief is healthy and a normal reaction to loss. And the only way we get to the other side of grief is to allow ourselves to truly go through it, right? If you stuff it down, and lots of people, especially men, are known to stuff that down, it just kind of festers in there. You know, you got to work through it. You got to bring the grief out and process it. A couple of definitions I think that are important to understand. Grief is not the same as mourning. Grief is the internal response that you have to loss. It can be physical, fatigue, nausea, a sense of difficulty breathing. It can be emotional, anxiousness, overwhelming sadness, anger, or it can be spiritual response to a loss, where you're questioning, is there really a God? And why does God allow suffering? And maybe even being angry at God. Grief is a personal and internal response. And when we take that grief and we begin to express it outwardly, that's mourning. Okay, we're giving voice to our grief, and that's where the processing of the grief starts to take place. Maybe we're crying at the funeral, so we decide to put our former house on our screensaver at work, right? We're showing signs of this person and giving people the opportunity to even talk about this person. How many of you here have lost a family member, a close family member, or a dear friend and have experienced grief? So I think probably the one thing we can all agree on is that grief is unpredictable. It's like riding a roller coaster blindfolded, you know, with many ups and downs. You can walk into the grocery store and smell fried chicken and think of your mom who used to make fried chicken, right? Or you can hear a song on the radio and suddenly you're in tears because it reminds you of your wedding day dance. Those sorts of things can trigger a grief response. So grief becomes deep and within us, and we can't separate ourselves from the grief and mourning. Nor can we separate the grief and mourning from our work. So if we're mourning and we go to work, grief follows us there, right? So now I want to do some myth busting. Mourners should be strong and carry on, especially at work. Let me tell you that grief and mourning has nothing to do with strength, right? People often said to me, "Ah, you are the strongest person I know. I don't know how you get through this. What other option do I have, really?" Right? I mean, I could curl up in a ball in the corner, but that's not very productive. And I had other people counting on me, like my son and my grandson, my other son. You know what? I needed to be there to support them. So again, it has nothing to do with strength, even though grief will bring you to your knees. And like we discussed, so grief becomes interwoven within your soul. It doesn't come with an off and on switch. So it's like saying, if you broke your leg, you need to leave your crutches and your cast at the door, right? You can't. You need that. Well, grief follows you into work. Another myth, tears are a sign of weakness. Again, grief has nothing to do with strength. Grief-related tears are actually a sign of great love that was lost. You see, grief is the price we pay for love. Other myth, we shouldn't talk about grief and death, especially at work. I say, why not? Right? We talk about what you're going to do on the weekend, about your upcoming vacation, talk about you're mad at your husband or your wife, right? You had an argument that morning. Why wouldn't we talk about grief and death? If it was your loss, wouldn't you want to know that your coworkers cared enough about you to talk about it? Another myth, it's best to leave a grieving person alone. Not usually. People who are grieving experience an overwhelming amount of emotions, and many of them can be familiar emotions that get bottled up inside. It's kind of like they're stuck on an island by themselves. And maybe now they go home to an empty house because their spouse has died. They need people to talk to. Part of grief is talking about the loss over and over and over. So you may have heard the story before, right? You may very well hear it again and again because that's part of grief work. And the last myth is you can't really help someone who's grieving. Oh goodness, that's not true, right? At this end of the session, you'll have a few ideas on how to help your grieving coworker, or frankly, your grieving neighbor, your grieving family member, your grieving person that sits in church next to you. These ideas can really be applied to anyone who is grieving. So why is talking about knowing how to support your grieving coworkers or employees important? Annually, 4 million Americans will grieve the loss of someone dear to them. The Grief Recovery Institute estimates grief costs the American businesses $75 billion a year, primarily due to grief-related absenteeism. Again, grief is like a roller coaster. It's unpredictable. And so attendance at work might be that predictable too. Grief-related absenteeism includes bereavement leave, as well as taking time off sporadically for other important dates. People oftentimes, especially that first year, want to take off for the deceased person's birthday, right? If it's spouse, their wedding anniversary, the death anniversary. Even if it's somebody who's lost their mom or their father or a child, they may take extra time off at Mother's Day or Father's Day. Those are all important times that can be triggers for those that are grieving. Another issue is presenteeism. So absenteeism is absent from work, right? Presenteeism is when they're present at work physically, but they're not really there emotionally 100%, right? They have difficulty concentrating, they tend to be less engaged, less efficient, and less productive when compared to the performance prior to the loss. Now, this doesn't go on forever. It might go on for 2 or 3 months. It could go on for 8 months, 12 months. Rare occasions, a little bit longer than that, but usually within the first 12 months, people kind of get their footing again and they're able to kind of get back into the routine. But simply, presenteeism is being physically present and mentally absent. And presenteeism is less obvious than absenteeism, so it's really hard to calculate the financial impact of presenteeism on businesses from a financial standpoint. Grief and grief work consumes energy, often leaving the griever exhausted. And there are added levels of stress. Maybe they have more childcare responsibilities now, medical bills, funeral bills, concern about overall survival, all of which can lead to poor decision-making, substance misuse, lower productivity, increased errors, and even increased risk of injury. 31% of employers say that they would like to know how to support their grieving employees. Managers and coworkers are hesitant to talk about it. Most often being about what to say or how to bring it up, the awkwardness with it, and sometimes even their own feelings related to grief. Some employers believe that providing bereavement leave and a card for the EAP is all they have to do to support a grieving employee. I would say those are the minimum things, right? Those are the minimum ways you can care for your employee. The average company in the United States offers an average of 3 to 4 days of bereavement leave for loss of a child or loss of a spouse. Think about it for a moment. If your spouse or your child dies and you get 3 or 4 days to deal with it before you return to work. How did that work for you? It's hard. You know, if you start thinking about what happens when somebody dies, your spouse dies suddenly today, you leave the office. Tomorrow is day 1 of bereavement. You're at the funeral home discussing arrangements. Day 2 of bereavement leave, you're gathering clothes and pictures, awards, and military paperwork, BD 214 to show, honorable discharge, writing the obituary. Bereavement day 3, you go get your hair done, go buy an outfit for the services. Bereavement day 4 is the funeral, and you're exhausted, right? And employers often will expect you to come back, and for many people, those days are often paid, not always, but often paid, and maybe they've been caring for an ill spouse or an ill child, and they have no more PTO, and so they have to go back because they have to get paid. When there's young children involved, right, at home, they're gonna have to learn how to juggle all of this. Who will help after school with after school pickup, the scout meeting tomorrow? Often those in the early stages of their grief journey are struggling to sleep, and that just compounds the difficulty and the struggle. Some employers require that bereavement leave is used consecutively. I'd say that if you're going to give them the 3 to 4 or maybe 5 days, don't require it's consecutive. If they have limited time, sometimes the death happens and the services are for 3 or 4 days, and they'll say, you know what, I need to stay busy. I'm going to come into work for those couple of days, and that takes time. So don't punish them. And creating an empathetic work culture. The Business Solvers State of Workplace Empathy, a survey done in 2021, found 92% of employees said they are more likely to stay with an empathetic employer. So if you show caring and concern and kindness towards your employee, that's one way to improve employee loyalty. 84% of CEOs believe that financial performance is tied to empathy in the workplace. So think about it. Your employees have happier and more likely to stay with you, and you're gonna have better financial performance. So it really is a win-win. So how do you educate your leadership team, your HR staff on grief? You know, you have to provide education, symptoms of grief. Again, physically, they may be fatigued, have nausea, difficulty eating, difficulty sleeping, a sense of not being able to take a deep breath, and diarrhea. Those are common things that happen in the first weeks following a death. Emotional symptoms of grief, tearfulness, anxiety, depression, sadness, anger, forgetfulness, and related brain fog. It's a real thing. And then spiritually, again, questioning, why do people suffer? Is there really a God? Being angry at God, they're going to church anymore. People will struggle. And when you see those signs of grief, it's important to recognize them. Be aware of resources for your grieving employees, and there's a slide coming up that has some of those on there. If someone's having an emotional crisis, I want to point out the 988. So 911 is for a medical or other emergency. 988 is for a mental health emergency. If someone's suicidal, if someone's having a mental crisis or a mental breakdown, 988 will put you in direct contact with a counselor, and they'll be able to give you direction and advice on how to proceed. Some ways to provide support day to day, do simple things. You're picking up coffee in the morning on the way to work, pick up 2 coffees and take them one. Just little ways of showing that care and that you remember that they're having a tough time. Employers or departments within an organization can start a meal train and provide meals. That first week after a death, I'm going to come over tomorrow and mow your grass. My housekeeper's available on Saturday. Can I send her over just to do the basics? Because I know you're probably going to have guests. Find ways to help. HR policies that you should look at is your bereavement leave, PTO policy, right? And counseling services, are they covered in some way, maybe through an AP? I recently also learned of an organization called Little Cloak. Little Cloak, it's biblically based from the standpoint of the cloak offers protection, and it's safe. And so it's called Little Cloak, and it's a group of chaplains who are available 24 hours a day to field calls from your employees when they're having a crisis, either at work, at home, whatever. And it's a service that organizations can pay for monthly to have available, like an EAP. One additional important consideration is do you do when an employee dies? If you've encountered that, I've had 3 employees die that I was currently working with them. One employee on a Saturday night completed suicide. That was devastating to our team. She was a social worker, and we all thought, yes, right, we felt really bad. So we gathered on Sunday just to share stories about this person and to grieve together. That was important to kind of keep the team together and to support each other. Another one, we had a beloved RN who died. He became ill with pneumonia, was hospitalized, rapidly deteriorated, and died. He died on a Friday morning. So I felt it was important to bring the team together before the weekend. His signature was his cowboy hat. He always wore it, like to see his patients, that his cowboy boots. So I went and bought a cowboy hat. We set up a table with a white cloth on it and put the cowboy hat upside down on the table, and white candle that was invited people to write notes of things they would want to say about John or to John, and that they knew that that hat was going to be delivered to his wife. So the staff got the opportunity to share what they were feeling. We didn't look at those, no one else read it. And then I delivered it to his wife, and she got the benefit of reading all these thoughts about her husband, whose death was rather unexpected. And when we pulled the team together for this, there certainly was some crying, if that's part of grief, but there was laughter too. And remember, laughter is a part of grief. Sometimes when people start to laugh, they're like, oh, I can't laugh. My child, my spouse, my parent has died. But really, laughing is often because of remembering good times. And so laughter's okay. So providing empathetic support to your grieving employee, first of all, always be genuine and speak from your heart. I think if you're genuine and are speaking your truth, even if the words aren't exactly right, that's going to be more than a cliche, right? For example, when you don't know what to say because maybe it's a very tragic situation, maybe it's a car accident and one or two people died in the family, and then there's a critically injured person, something like this is such a devastating tragedy. I don't even know what to say. I just want you to know I care deeply about you. That's what you have to say. It doesn't have to be any long thing. Oftentimes, if you've ever been person standing there as people came because of your loved one and they tell you things on and on and on and on stories, you're not able to take it in, that brain fog, you're not able to retain it. So just being genuine is the most important thing. If you want to help, don't say, call me. If you need anything, call me, right? Rather, again, you know what? I'm going to come over tomorrow and mow your grass. I'm going to take your car and get the oil change because I know you guys are going to Tennessee for the burial. But think of things they need. I'm going to the grocery store. What can I pick up for you? Find ways to be specific because, again, if you've ever been the person who's grieving, it's hard to know what you need, right? But when someone says things like that, it's like, oh gosh, thank you so much. That'll help so much. When an employee notifies you that they've experienced the death in their family, be sure to ask permission to share that information with their peers at work so that you've got that permission. If and services, the information is available, make sure you share that with the team as well in case people want to attend. Right? Prior to their return to work, ask them, are there any special considerations before you return to work? Do you just want to show up at work and go about day? Do you want us to have like a 10-minute gathering when you get there and everyone can do the hugs and the I'm sorries and all of that, coffee, and then we all go in and get back to our work? I had an employee say, tell people not to hug me. If they hug me, I'm gonna melt down and be in tears. Don't tell them to hug me. So we said she's requested no hugs, But it's a way of honoring your employee and being respectful of what they want. It's a nice touch if the manager can meet with that employee first thing when they get there, right? And not talk about work and what they need to get caught up on. Have her talk about how are you? And they'll probably say, I'm doing okay. I used to say, no, really, I want to know how are you? Are you sleeping okay? Are you eating okay? Think of the hierarchy of needs and are they getting their basic needs met? Don't be afraid to say the deceased person's name. People often think, oh, I don't want to bring up their deceased child's name because I'll make them sad. Well, trust me, a parent doesn't forget their child's deceased. And when someone remembers them, especially a name or a spouse or a parent, it means the world because it's because it's like they remember. They don't only remember my daughter, they remember my share stories if you have fond memories. The other day I was thinking about the summer picnic and starting to plan it, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, your wife always had to bring those fancy tablecloths and centerpieces for each table, and it just put a smile on my face. Can you see how hearing something like that in the middle of your day can just be a little bump of energy, a little, shot in the arm to keep you going? Remember important dates, and obituaries contain most of these: birthday and death date, sometimes wedding anniversaries, and acknowledge those. Trust me, your employee is going to be remembering those as those dates approach. You can do it by a verbal comment. Hey, I noted your mom's birthday. It would have been her 93rd birthday. I'm sure it's a hard day for you. You can't imagine what it's like celebrating birthdays in heaven. Try to leave kind of on a positive, but not a Pollyannish note, right? You can email them that information I'm thinking of you today, or you can send a card. I'd say if you're gonna send a card, send it to their home. Don't put it in their employee mailbox. It just takes more effort. It shows more intention. Right? And again, when you think about it, these were the things that may help improve and increase employee loyalty because they know you care about them. Don't forget to check in periodically. They get back to work and 2 weeks in, people no longer are talking about the fact that they've had a significant loss. So, when you see them all, oh, hey, grab a cup of coffee and stop by this afternoon. I want to chat with you. And when they come in, hey, I just wanted to check and see how you're doing. I know it's been 3 months since your mom passed. How are things going? And then we all had to get through the house, or the house is on the market or whatever, but allowing them to tell you what's going on and the fact that you asked again shows you care. And lastly, I'd say brand race, right? Because your coworkers won't be working at a slower pace. They may be forgetful or experiencing again that grief-related brain fog, and they might make errors. So be patient and brand race. Here's a list of resources. I know, thank you, Beth, you made some copies of the handouts and they're on the table. So if you want to have resources, these are just in town, but certainly pull for more. These are more national groups as opposed to local. I will certainly put a plug in for Ohio's Hospice of Data and Pathways of Hope. There's a large bereavement center that offers counseling, one-on-one counseling, support groups, and they have a kids grief camp as well. And those things are all provided to the community at no charge. So that's one of the way all the contributions that Ohio's Hospice of Data gets, that they give back to the community.
Kids camp is next weekend, actually.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I know Dawn's volunteered at that. I volunteered at that. Wow. Emotional, but just amazing the transformation in those kids from the time they're getting off the bus at camp to the time they're leaving. No point contact, they're getting off the bus. They don't, except for the teenagers, I don't want to be here, and before you know it, it happens. It just happens every time, doesn't it? Yep. Again, that littlecloak.com is the group that I told you about. These are chaplains that are trained in emotional and mental health issues. Is not a spiritual based though service, so non-denominational. They're there just to provide listening and support and to help identify resources. As an FYI, I'm doing a 9-minute presentation on supporting our grieving employees workplace on June 25th from 4 to 5:30 in the afternoon. I would try to catch people at the end of their day. This one's going to be held at the Soy Medical Center meeting. So it'll be more of this, but just more in depth. The other option is that I am available to come speak at employers, speaking to leadership teams, HR departments, that sort of thing, to train employees and leaders on how to support grieving employees. And lastly, this is my contact information. If you need anything else that I can help you with, please let me know. I have one of each of the 6 books that I've written over there if you'd like to see them. Little touchstone turtles that I purchased from Ecuador. Goes to a Save the Turtle fund there, but they're little knitted turtles that a child can hold in their hand, put them in their pocket or their backpack and take it to school very discreetly. Miss and mom on the playground, reach in and squeeze that turtle and feel connected. So those have been a huge hit with the kids, but those are some of the items that I have available on my website, which is myhopepath.com. And thank you so much for being here. I hope you gained something that you can walk away with today that will help you to be a better friend, co-worker, family member, and supporting other people who are grieving. Do you guys have any questions for me? Comments?
Sure. I am familiar with how awesome the Hospice of Dayton is for family members of the lost. Do a great job. What is policy there for the employees? Do you guys ever think about, if something were to happen, what you would leave behind? Is there policies in place? Or are you guys, I'm looking at you guys as the expert. Are you guys thinking that far ahead?
So can you clarify for me what you mean using like?
Knowing the business that you're in, that you guys do extra when it comes to end of life for employees. Even preemptively,
So if one of our employees is ill,
yeah,
yes, so we have a couple of things where we honor different individuals in our care. One is veterans. We do veteran pinnings and honor veterans for their service prior to the end of their life. And it's a little ceremony we do, and it's usually retired veterans who are doing the pinnings and who are doing the honoring with staff around. And we also have the nursing honor guard. So nursing honor guard will come in, if it's in the inpatient unit or to a patient's home. And the nurses are dressed like old time, like army nurses with the big blue capes, the white dress, shoes, hose, hat. They have the Florence Nightingale lantern, they meet with the family, they read about that person's work as a nurse. And then they read the Florence Nightingale pledge that that nurse took when she became a nurse or he became a nurse. And then they say that your shift is done. And, we thank them for the service. So there's some of the things that we do for our, and certainly, we work beside that along with that. If someone's dying and, trying to provide support and do what we do for just about everybody out there, right, that uses our services. Everybody gets the top of the line best care we can provide, but our staff get that as well. Yes, sir.
So as a HR person, this information is awesome. Stuff like it. So it has some of this. Years. So my question is, have you looked into finding a way to possibly clone yourself? It's mandatory training. Across the world.
Well, I'm reaching out to some of the bigger employers in the Dayton area, trying to get them interested in maybe to come there and do this presentation for them, right? And for their staff. And I think the payoff is just immeasurable, right? It's huge, but how sometimes it can be in big corporations. So if you know of any employers who might be open to this, I'd be happy to meet with them and talk with them about providing this training for them. And again, it's something you can take through your life with you, right? Once you learn it and you understand it, then it affects all aspects of your life.
When my father was very ill and in the hospital, I remember some things that the staff and other people would say to my mom, it was really helpful. So I'm gonna share it, maybe you have other ideas as well. The staff would just say, tell us about your spouse, or people didn't know my dad's name, what's your spouse's name? How long were you married? And just allow my mom the space to talk about my dad. And the same was true when we went to make the arrangements with the funeral. Just making my dad a real person. I think it was really, really helpful in that process. And I think it humanized both my parents really well. And so I don't know if you have other ideas, or unfortunately I've been in a position that I probably had 6 friends lose children in the last 5 years. So it's just like, what are some things that we can say in these moments that maybe is appropriate to kind of make that person?
Yes, thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad to hear that in hospitals you're hearing some of that kind of, questioning and discussion. I always used to say to families that I've done training in hospice about this, where I say, think of some questions that you can ask if you've ever sat vigil with someone who's died for hours. And they're struggling to breathe. Breaths are becoming further apart, and everyone's watching. Is this the last breath? Oh, and there's another breath. And it starts again, right? It's awful, it's agonizing. So during that time, I would always say things like, what's your fondest memory of your dad? What are you most proud of about him? Right? Tell me about your favorite vacation. What's your fondest holiday tradition? I mean, there's lots of things, but what happens is they start talking, right? And you're exactly right, humanize the person who's unconscious in that bed that I never really got a chance to know. It helps the family because that's part of the anticipatory grief work. the grief that comes because you know they're gonna die. But it's also good because we believe, and studies have shown, hearing's the last sense to go. Can you imagine if you're dying, and you're hearing your children and your spouse talk about what they're most proud of you about, what you taught them, your vacations and your family traditions? I mean, what a comforting thought, that someone on their way out has that to hear. So yes, it's bringing it back and talking about a life and reflecting on the difference they've made in your life and even what their mark on the world was. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I know it's a tough subject, but thank you so much for being here. Again, I hope you're taking something away, and Chris, I've got cards if you want some.
As someone who was married to a hospice nurse she was a hospice nurse for about 12 years. They not only take care of the patient, they take care of the family and actually help them with a lot of the things she talked about as far as what do we do next? What do we have to do? Is what always happens. So I can't speak highly enough about the hospice organizations. Thank you, Kim. We have a book that we're dedicating. And it says, when dads don't grow up. And I think probably a few of us in here that did grow up. And I'm gonna make sure I give this to Beth right now. Otherwise it'll get back in the storage room.
Sure.
Well, she's your wife. Next week's speaker is Kitty Lindgren. She's the CEO of Book TV. Our readers will be Charles Curran and Mackenzie Blair. I will not be here next week, just so you know. There will be a board meeting, a combined board meeting right after this meeting, so anybody's welcome to stay. Both boards will be here. Anything else for the good of the club? You'd all please stand.
I played let's say so there. Consider it all stands on each stage. That's all. With liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Jack. Yeah. Whatever you could do. Oh, yeah. No. Quite. But you can have.
Get that off for sure. You're gonna be person who's working with something of the targets, quite a few church.
No, it's not that. Yeah, sure.
Can I drink that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.